Anyway, as you see, I loaded up disc 1 again here. So anyway, this stream here. This is just going to be going over some of the extra stuff here. There's not really like post-game content here, but there is a lot of other stuff to talk about in the game that you don't really get to know about. I'm going to go over to Dazzle here. And we're just going to start off here at Dazzle. So a couple things probably gonna cover and talk about tonight. I do have a PDF of the Perfect Works. I kind of want to go through some bits of that because that does give you a little bit more in depth on some aspects of the storyline that aren't really made clear in the game while you're playing, because this game is very dense, and not everything is spelled out very clearly as to what is going on in the storyline. So I figured that might be a good thing to take a look at here. The other thing here is that this game has one of the most amazing and mysterious debug rooms in any video game I have played. And I remember I played around with this thing a lot when I was younger on the PlayStation, and it always fascinated me because there's so many options in it. So I am going to be using save states here because that is the way to go when dealing with the debug room, because there's always a chance things are going to screw up. But there's a couple ways to get to the debug room here. There's a couple different codes you have to use a patch code to get into it. Either you want to call it a Game Shark code or a Pro Action Replay code or just a PNATCH code on the emulator. The basic one will just send you straight into the debug room as soon as you start the game. The other option, which I like better, is the option that allows you to basically go into a doorway and then it'll just take you right to it, which is more useful. There's a kid standing in my way. Get out of the way. So, and this debug room has one of the most amazing things in it. So, we just try this doorway, see if this works. Hey! There we go. I don't know what the demo flag does. Let's ignore that. Anyway, this is the debug room. This is actually one of the debug rooms in the game. This is the main room. All sorts of things you can do here. There's also 5 mysterious doors. But for the purposes of the stream, the only one we want to concern ourselves with is this one here. This is the most special door right here in the middle here. This is the door of doors. This door will take you to any other doorway in the game, including cutscenes. It is the most powerful thing in this entire game. It really is. It is more powerful than Graph, the Secret of Power. But there are also some additional rooms in here. The best way to get to them is by talking to this dude over here. Most of these rooms are complete and utter nonsense. Before we do that, let me make a save state in here, because I will need to load back into here again. Some of these rooms you cannot, or you probably can, but it's very difficult to figure out how to get out of them and back over here again. The Kata room is this. Now, a lot of these options are just teleport options that will take you to various events throughout the game. The only thing you really need to be careful about here is you don't want to teleport yourself to something that happens on the other disc of the game. Otherwise, you will just get the red screen of death if you try to do that. So we can teleport back to Citan's house at night. And that just sends you back to this cutscene, way back at the beginning of the game. Except this time we have 2 Citans and an Ellie with us now. As long as the game ignores this, you should be able to kind of proceed here. But if for some reason the game is trying to call an event with a character who is not in your party that's supposed to be there, it will crash the game. Or if there's a character in your party that's not supposed to be there, it could also crash the game too, so that's why I made a save state, so you can easily go back to the debug room. But yeah, you can spend hours and hours and hours just messing around with the debug room in this game. But yeah, we already know what happens from here, so let's just go back. So we need to pull up the... If you go into game FAQs, there is a... Thankfully there was somebody who spent a great deal of thankful time creating a guide to the debug room. And you really need to look at this guide, because this guide lists out the I don't want to call it coordinates, but the number list that you need in order to navigate the door of doors. It is called the Dokodemo door. And let me find it here. What am I looking at here? This is not that. This is the... Okay, yeah, this is it here. So let's go back to Lehon Village here, which is something you normally can't really do once you have gotten to a certain point in the game. Should be code 006 should take us back to Lehon. This is the Dokodemo door. This is the most amazing thing in the game. You have all these numbers, and you really do need the guide in order to know where this takes you to. The 6 should take us back to Lehon Village here. See, here we are. See, Lehon's not destroyed. It's still here in the game. They still think it is. Alice and Timothy's wedding day is still coming. See? See, the whole town is still here. That's perfectly fine. And we can still jump in the well as before. Well, it's dangerous. That's better if I don't go near it again. Oh well. See if we can give Ellie a tour of the village here. But yes, you can use this amazing door to go to most places in the game. Just about everywhere. Let's take us back here again. So if you want to switch up the party members, Margie here will usually do that for you here. But I'm gonna stick with what we have right now. You can also add Adult Emeralda and Sword Wielding Citan into your party if you want. Because regular Citan and Sword Wielding Citan are considered to be 2 different characters in the game code. So you have to be careful. You can only have one or the other, because you can't have both at the same time. And it's the same thing with Emeralda. You got Kid Emeralda or Adult Emeralda, but you can't have both. They're considered to be different characters, but they take up the same character slot, so you can't have both of them at the same time. Dan here, I don't remember what Dan here. Oh, He just tells you to get on your gears or off your gears, that's all. Hammer over here will show you the character portraits. I'm gonna look through all of these. I don't think there's any special ones in here. There's the debug portrait. There's the question mark one. I don't remember where it is. Sad Faye. We have Nicely Dressed Faye. We have Dr. Kim, Medicine Man portrait. Faye with no clothes, Faye with his bomb collar. Angry Ellie. Oh, here it is, the question mark portrait. I think this is a dummied out portrait. I don't know what it would have been for. This is a Nurse Ellie. Distressed Ellie. Miang Ellie. I don't know what this one is. It's like dark-eyed Ellie. I don't actually... You know what? I don't actually remember where this is in the game. Maybe it's an unused one. Because her eyes are almost black. And it's like she has a different outfit on. I don't know. Skull face. But yeah, that just gives you all the character portraits in the game. Okay, the cow here gives you the music player. Let's find a good tune here. Again, I have to look at the list here. But you don't want to go... There's only 72 tracks on this music player. If you try to go beyond that, it's not going to work. There is a phase theme. What exactly is phase theme? It's number 46. So this is considered phase theme? Oh. Well, I think it's more like the... I would say this is more like the romance theme between Faye and Ellie. But you can also control the pitch and tempo. You have to use the R1 and O1 buttons for this. Oh yes, that's... Can we make this very sinister sounding? Slightly. Change the tempo a little bit. I don't think that does anything. No, let me just go look at the list again here. Yeah, let's go with 07 here. And we'll start looking at the perfect works here. So we have some music in the background here. Okay. Ignore the green background. I don't know why it turns green when you look at when you try to do the portrait thing. It just turns a random color in the background. Get my water here. But we're gonna look at the perfect works books here. I'm gonna do a little bit more with the debug room here, but I'm not gonna go through like everything on the perfect works here. Let me pull it up. There we go. The Xenogears Perfect Works. This is a translated PDF. If you buy the book, it comes in Japanese and you won't be able to read it, so this thankfully was translated so you can actually understand what's actually going on here. Alright, so in case you didn't really know, Xenogears is episode 5 of 6 parts. I never got the other 5 parts of the game, but this kind of gives you an overview of what the other parts of the game were supposed to be. Now, start with episode 1 here. Episode 1, the era of interplanetary war. So this happens about 15,000 years before the story. You can kind of read it here real quick. Basically, it's just kind of covers generally humanity's journey into space, the creation of the sort of the Galaxy Federation, the founding of Neo Jerusalem as their capital. Apparently they settled in the Archer constellation, M24 as they say there. And this continued for about 5,000 years, so until 10,000 years before the start of the Xenogears, episode 5. This is the time when the Deus was created. It appears to develop in the air, but besides the phenomenon, this episode remains shrouded in mystery. Meaning we don't really get a lot of details about this. It's just kind of backstory. And this is episode 1, I think, is supposed to end when the Eldridge is destroyed. So it ends right around there. Episode 2, the time of Genesis. This is when life forms on the world of Fae and the others. So this starts up right after episode 1 ends. And this is when Cain and the first humans appear. Abel is the boy who survived the Eldritch crash. I guess the only real human that is actually on the planet at this time. Speaking of which, I probably do need to go over the Eldritch crash events here too, because there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the background of the Eldritch event you see in the opening movie that is not really made clear. Especially about what led up to that happening. But I'll probably talk about it after I talk about the episodes here. So this is basically Cain, the Gazel Ministry, Abel, the first Ellie, the first Miang, and they're basically establishing civilization on this world. Basically, Abel and Ellie rebelled against Cain and his plot to... Because at that time, Cain was fully on board with helping to resurrect the Deus system. Abel and Ellie were kind of wise to it, and they didn't want to go along with it, and they got whacked pretty much. that's about all we really know. I think the details are very, very sparse about this part of the story. So here we have episode 3. Episode 3 is the Zeboim culture. As it says here, Sage episode 3 is that of the real world. Advanced scientific culture, level of human intelligence had attained a peak. But due to genetic damage, those unable to reproduce began to increase, and using nanotechnology, Kim, who was Abel's new reincarnated form, worked towards finding a way to overcome this, but Miang's plot resulted in his complete failure. Emeralda was created in this era, and nanotechnology was revived as one of the three stages of Shiva, Tara, Melchior, much later on. So episode 3 is supposed to be more like current modern day society. as you saw in some of the flashback videos. When we were in the Zeboim ruins, pretty much war was arranged between the different nations during the Zeboim era by Miang, and I don't think they mentioned it in. I don't think it was shown in the flashbacks from what I'm aware of, but there were apparently two Miangs operating at that time. Miang she had reformed herself, or I'm not trying to find the right word here, transferred her consciousness into twins. So Miang awoke at the same time in a pair of twins, so there were two Miangs operating at the same time. One was operating on one side of the countries, and the other one was kind of playing the other side. So this is how Miang was able to kind of play both sides and get them to kind of annihilate each other with the nuclear weapons at the time. So, I think that's mentioned somewhere else later on in the Perfect Works book, maybe. But that was how Miang basically wrecked humanity at that time, and it wasn't really made very clear. I don't think it was really made clear at all in the flashbacks in the game about that. Episode 4. This is the part we probably know the most about, besides Episode 5. So this is the Shevat-Solaris War, about 500 years before the start of the game. This is when we have Laken, Krelian, Roni and Rene, Fatima, Zypher. I remember what other characters. I don't think there were any other really named characters, and well, Miang, of course, was there. But it was around this time that Cain and the Zeboim Ministry judged humanity was ready for the last stage of evolution, and this is when Solaris was created, around this time. Solaris was created basically to establish direct control of the surface, but the humans at the time sort of evolved the ability to start using ether. But that was an important thing that happened around this time too, is that humans started using, they evolved the ability to use ether. Basically magic, basically, as you see in the game. Apparently before this, humans did not have the ability to do ether, so. And this basically gave people the ability to fight back against Solaris at the time. And involved the ability to use ether for service war against Solaris, and the streams were long. Great War finally came to an end, and became known as the Day of Collapse happened. They probably mentioned this later on, but at this time, Ava was not a country at that time, and neither was Kislev. You basically had Shevat, Nisan, and there was the major other country at the time was called the Nimrod Empire. I think that's what it was called. And Nimrod was the country where that Krelian was from. That's where most of the military power at the time was from, and Nimrod was supposed to be very advanced, similar to Shevat at the time. And apparently the Nimrod nation got completely wiped out during the Diabolos collapse, which was caused by Graph. So that's why there's no traces of Nimrod left by the time Episode 5 starts. Pretty much the old capital of Nimrod became the capital of Kislev, and Blevedek was built, or not Blevedek, Kislev was built around, it was kind of built around what was left of it. And around the big, trying to find the right word here. The big Macross-style battleship that was just sitting there. Basically, they built the city around that. I don't know what the official name for it's supposed to be in game, or well, in the context of the history of the world. Of course, Bart calls it the Yggdrasil 4, but that's just Bart's name for it. And then we get up to Episode 5, which of course is the game. Resurrection Deus, blah 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 blah. We already know all of this because that's what the game is. If you've been watching the streams, you already know the story for that. And Episode 6. We really don't know anything about Episode 6. While the timeline directly after Episode 5 is pivotal, at this point in time, it remains a completely undeveloped episode. It is only known to be the terminal point of Xenogears' world, and from now on, the revealing of information is held back. So, apparently what I can take from that is that Takahashi-san and Soraya Saga, the writers for the Xenogears storyline, they're probably the only people who know what Episode 6 is supposed to be, or what it was supposed to be about, and they did not include that information in the Perfect Works book. So, and unfortunately, we are probably never going to find that out, what that is, unless for some reason Takahashi wants to like just spill the beans at some point, like, oh yeah, this is what was supposed to happen in Episode 6, like. But as far as I'm aware, he's never spilled the beans on it, so so we're gonna forever not really know what this was supposed to be about, so that will be one of the great eternal mysteries of Xenogears, is what was Episode 6 supposed to be about? I mean, what else, realistically, what else was there supposed to be? Like, what else could happen? Because it's kind of hard for me to imagine what else could happen in the context of the storyline. The only thing I can think of is if somehow the world that the Xenogears world somehow, you know, the civilization develops enough that it can go back out into space somehow, and comes into contact with maybe the remnants of the Galaxy Federation that created Deus or something. Or they manage to go back to Lost Jerusalem, which is something that exists in this game as well. I know it's a big thing in Xenosaga, but it's also something that exists here in Xenogears as well. This is actually Takahashi's comments right here. The world of Xenogears is divided into 3 large parts containing the episodes. The first part takes place about 5,000 years after our time, with vast universe as its stage. The second part is the game, story of Faye and the Other's world. The third part tells of what comes after. So apparently that third part is the mystery part. We don't really know what that is. Within that, the 4 episodes must once again be looked at in detail in order to be understood. From the beginning of the second part, secrets were contained in the various episodes. For example, in simulation games as well as novelizations, virtually every medium was thought of in order to express it, and the result is that scene in the game. So I guess I can understand that maybe Takahashi was considering making other mediums for telling the story of Xenogears, like a novel or an animated movie or something, and he just settled on game for it, I guess. The meaning of the game Xenogears must be understood from the whole, as episodes 4 and 5 are but parts of the whole, while the stories of episodes 2 and 3 must be pieced together from fragments. So yeah, that's pretty much the way it's presented in the game. Like I mentioned, we know the most about episode 4. Episodes 2 and 3, we have only like a few pieces to kind of work with on that. And he says the still unveiled episodes 1 and 6 weigh on the mind. It was thought that certainly, by all means, it should appear in print. The transition from fragmentary stories to finished product shall come about gradually. One way to make this come about would be to ask the Zohar please and see what happens. So I think, as he mentioned there, we know the least about probably episodes 1 and 6, although I would argue we probably know less about episode 2 and 6. I mean, episode 1 is basically the story of the Galaxy Federation, and the Perfect Works book kind of lays that out pretty okay, I would say. Let's scroll through this here. Further days of the game is nothing about. As it says, Xenogears has a long history of 10,000 years. The story of Faye and the Other's actions tells only a small part of the story. It provides the basis for a history that is by no means insignificant. Of course, the view of the world is constructed with only one history in mind, one that begins 15,000 years ago, In this case, the story's history will be explained detail, beginning with the facts of the era in which the Zohar is discovered. So basically, the entirety of this story starts when the Zohar is first discovered. Very much the way in which Xenosaga is laid out. If you played that game, the story of that game pretty much starts when the Zohar is discovered. So this here actually gives you the backstory. And this starts in the year 2001 AD. Talking about the Zohar, the timeline, and this part about the Inner War with Deus here. I want to go through this stuff, because this stuff's kind of interesting here. So this stuff is basically what Episode 1 would cover, if that was ever put into some form of medium. A second here, let me clear my throat again here. And why don't we put some different music on, put some moody music on. Hold on, let me look at the... Let's find some good music to talk about the past. Let's see. Yes, okay, that one will be perfect. Let me go back to that. Okay. I know it's just probably a little blurry here to read. It looks that way to me too, so don't worry about it. So apparently the start of the story begins in 2001 AD. Humankind excavates an unknown object. My mic is still on. Yes it is. Make sure I'm not talking into the void. So if you played Xenosaga, a lot of the stuff in this first part is going to sound very, very familiar. So basically long ago, in an era that came to be known historically as the last coming of the Messiah, with the words left behind by notorious prophets to end their groundless fears, humankind faced the next 1,000 years, and the third millennium began 2001. Because an eye-shaped object was discovered in a stratum dating to about 3.9 billion years ago, it was known as distinctly artificially created form. It was one discovery that shook the whole world. Finally, due to the efforts of a research consortium, a partial hypothesis in the case of the object was announced and released to the world. Buried beneath the accumulation of geological strata dating back to the era of life's origins, this very object is the basis of all life forms, the artificial panspermia, a pan-universe seed child. However, in the beginning, the hypothesis took on greatly romantic meaning, the object's interpretation. General conflict and furies all springing from this disordered conjecture. The center of the reasoning world was devastated. The translation is not really perfect here. It's kind of it's not really the best translation, but I mean it's still readable here. However, their theory was vague based on the theory blah blah blah. So many theories all vying with one another. What is the object? Question long ago. Was it an artificial construct or a mere byproduct of chance? A riddle which was never made entirely clear. Basically, they're just talking about the Zohar here. That's what they're talking about. Somebody found the Zohar in a stratum of rock in 2001 AD. There's a bunch of research companies that are researching it, trying to come up with a hypothesis of what it is and the effect it's had on the development of humankind. Guess what the panspermia thing is here? That's on the side here. Cosmologer Fred Hoyle advanced the theory of panspermia, explaining that the origin of the universe is in space. Since then, it's been proven that there are a great number of comets containing organic matter, and one theory proposed is that life actually came from space. And over here, talking about was life born from the Zohar. Basically, the suggestion is that the Zohar influenced the creation of humans on Earth, and it wasn't until 2001 that it was actually discovered. And this rest stuff is kind of talking about the rest of it here. So in one part, ended up in automatic researchers' hands, but only a close analytical operation continued, and so among the researchers it came to be known by another name, the name of Zohar. So the researchers were studying the object and they decided to call it the Zohar. So now starts this timeline over here. Starts at the 2510 AD. The world-scale project for immigration to space is set into motion. The Directorate is established and the aim of completing the immigrant project 15 years later. From that point on, the era name is referred to as TC, Transcend Christ. After this 1 year equals 365 days, providing the basis for the standard stellar year. So at this point, humanity is starting to immigrate into space. And that starts the TC timeline. So in TC 16 years after Directorate's founding, the earnest wish of the people to spread out to the stars, which has been held for as long as 500 years, alas was fulfilled, and the Earth became the mother, as we are freed from gravity's rule. Yes, humanity's souls are now freed from gravity's, freed from being weighed down by gravity. A fleet of immigrant ships was organized and set up for the abyss of space. After that, the Earth became an inviolable region, a forbidden place, that was called Lost Jerusalem. The reason for this is unknown, for it is thought that the planet's surroundings did not greatly change. So at this point, it's like people started immigrating out into space. There were a bunch of immigrant fleets and everything going out. And for whatever reason, Earth became not exactly not habitable, but just not accessible anymore. So it's not really explained in the context of the Xenogears history why this is. So in 294 TC, 250 years have elapsed as the immigrant fleet wandered, and at last reached the M24 Archer constellation, where they deployed ships in order to discover possible planets to reside in. Landfall. The new planet became the Promised Land and is named Neo-Jerusalem, and it was there that they began to dwell. Next year, 295, the Star Cluster Federation is inaugurated. Neo-Jerusalem becomes the Federation's first prime star. The immigrant governing organization, the Directorate, is unified and reorganized. The first president is elected after Neo-Jerusalem is chosen as the chief cardinal point, as once again humankind heads out into the abyss of space. So this is when the Galaxy Federation is formed. They call it the Star Cluster Federation. And they have their capital on Neo-Jerusalem. And they talk about here, Neo-Jerusalem is the first world capable of supporting life that was acquired by humanity, establishing a base on this planet. Once again, they pushed outwards. Even though they grew in knowledge, it was only scientific. Their spiritual expansion did not occur, and so there was a sudden outbreak of large-scale war. And the living creature, Deus, so even though freed from gravity's pull and expanding their frontier in space, the same thing began to happen all over again. So basically, factions formed and wars broke out between the different factions of humanity in space now. So in this little red box here, they talk about the pretty much how Deus came to be. So this is now we're now in TC 4743, the 7th millennium. Due to the efforts of other archaeologists, at last an artifact from the former Lost Jerusalem's time, the MAM, the Abnormal Magnetic Matter, otherwise known as the Zohar, and the Pilgrim Fleet, as they are called, it is fought in the storeroom of a museum ship that is part of a wandering religious sex fleet. So again, this is something that's very familiar to the Xenosaga story happening right here. A lot of the things in Xenosaga happen around the immigrant fleet, which is pretty much what the Pilgrim Fleet is here. In 4744, after 5,000 years, analysis of the MAM begins once more, so they're studying the Zohar again. As a result of studying the Zohar, the theory of phenomenon phase shift is born. A lot of research groups attempt to master using the Zohar as its core, so as to turn suppositional theory into proven fact. Project Zohar commences. Strife in the region intensifies due to an accident in 47665. Cause of which is unknown. Project Zohar causes the destruction of a planet. The MAM is found floating in the nearby region and is recovered. So already we have like groups that are experimenting on the Zohar for whatever reason, and basically causing accidents, and entire planets are getting destroyed. Again, this is very, very familiar to Xenosaga. Xenosaga is following the same steps that kind of happened in the history here. And 4766, with the controlling system Catamony, the completion of Zohar seems almost completed. Now at the center is Catamony, that has as its central core the protocol center, Persona. And like the inner workings of the MAM, its processes are unknown. That same year, Interstellar War appears to be reaching its climax, and in the midst of this system, Deus is completed. So pretty much in order to help control the Zohar's overwhelming power, they attach the Catamony to the Zohar, I guess to kind of help control it somehow. And it was around this year that the Deus system was also completed as well. And 4767, during a series of experiments on both systems in NGC 6744, 3 months after Zohar is made Deus's main power source, construction of a space station in stationary orbit is begun at Mictum 04 Beta colony planet, which is undergoing colonization and terraforming. That year, during a series of experiments, the accident in which both systems run out of control for unknown reasons occurs. The rampaging Deus begins to invade the nearby colony at Mictum. Unnumbered casualties result. The military, fearing Deus's overwhelming fighting power, at last subdue it at the cost of many lives and place it in suspended animation. Afterwards, Deus is dismantled into its various cores and sealed for the sake of the official investigation into the accident that caused it to go out of control. And for further planning, the super space cruiser, the Eldridge, is requisitioned. Deus is loaded on board for transfer to another planet. Now the Eldridge takes on the workers and survivors from the nearby planet, which is about 1.2 million people, as refugee passengers. So basically what they're describing there is the Deus weapon system was activated, pretty much activated on accident, near the planet Mictum. It went out of control and apparently attacked the planet, and I think might have destroyed the planet. I'm not entirely sure. But the Galaxy Federation basically had to come in and subdue Deus and dismantled it. So they took the parts of it, they loaded it onto the Eldridge ship, they took the survivors from the Mictum disaster, put them on the Eldridge, and we're going to send the whole thing off to some other place. Or apparently, what did they say? Well, they didn't really say what they were going to do with it. I assume they were either going to further dismantle it or test it some more. Who knows? We never get to find out. Because Deus woke back up again. So I already tell you a little bit about the Eldridge here. It's a Philadelphia-class space cruiser. The second ship of the line, apparently. The first one is the Philadelphia. And the Eldridge was the second ship. So apparently there is another Eldridge-class ship floating around out there in space somewhere. Not that it's relevant to the game. So basically they talk about... So the Babel Tower and Mahonan were the two main sections of the ship that broke apart when it was self-destructed, and we see those parts in the game. Let's see, when it talks about Babel here, for a ship on the scale of the Eldridge, every major block is made to be fully functional on its own. The 1-4 block of the Babel becomes Babel Tower in the story. Also in the case of the 4 block, it contains a large-scale plant for HLV use. When Shevat was built, this became its central block station. So basically Shevat was built from a section of the Babel Tower. And from what I understand in the story, during the... It was probably around the start of the Shevat-Solaris War. Shevat was attached to Babel Tower at the top, originally. And I think they do mention this in the game. At some point they disconnected it and had Shevat sort of go off on its own. So, that's what they're talking about right there. For the Mahonan, this is a block containing the computer, the Raziel, that governs the entire Eldridge. Like the 4 block of Babel, achieves a soft landing due to its independent navigational ability. In the case of Raziel, the first fusion of alien civilizations, weapon, and biological information. It records material regarding Deus. It is, for this reason, afraid that this information could leak to human beings that the Gazel Ministry used gate technology to prevent anyone from going to Mahonan. Basically, the Gazel Ministry was basically hiding the Honan from everybody. Okay, this part talks about... Well, okay, this is like the 3 main components of the Deus weapon system. You have the Deus core, the Zohar power generator, and the Katamoni. Strongly restrained, Deus is suspended in animation, with each core divided from the other, and is loaded onto the Eldridge. During the opening movie, when the operator calls out Alpha 1, it refers to the biological computer Katamoni's mainframe, primary protocol persona. Omega 1 indicates Deus's actual body. So, back in that opening movie, the operator talking about Alpha 1 and Omega 1, talking about the components of the Deus system, basically activating. And as you can see here, both of the Excalibur ships, there are 2 of them, and the Yggdrasil 4, these were originally ships that were loaded onto the Eldridge. And I believe the other Yggdrasil flying cruisers were also originally ships that were on the Eldridge as well. So all these ships were not built by the people on the planet. They were originally part of the Eldridge. So again, the red text box here, this is talking about Deus' revolt, initiating the self-resurrection program. So this is the opening movie stuff of the game. So at the very start of the game, it's like TC4767. Doing in suspended animation, Deus suddenly activates during the transfer. The sealed Zohar separates from Deus, hacks into the Eldridge's mainframe, the artificial intelligence and Raziel, and takes over. It activates a space-time displacement mode. It plans to move the Eldritch and everyone on board to the main star. I guess we can assume the main star is probably Neo Jerusalem. I would assume that's what that is. Temporarily gives the position of the Eldritch as captain by the Technology Research Center headquarters, blah blah blah. Then eradication. There's a core kernel. Okay, the captain does have a name, by the way. He's never named in game, but he's Higeyoshi Inoue. He makes the decision to abandon the Eldritch and devises a plan to use the central ship's bolt system to stop Deus. Of course, as we saw, that did not work. And when it takes over the ship's explosive plug, that task becomes impossible. Then the central spinal shaft fusion bolt is exploded. This is a plan to sever the spinal shaft core. Man, my throat's getting so dry trying to read all this. Yeah, this is why I'm not going to read out everything on Pervert Wars. I'm just going to kind of skim through some of the important stuff here at the start of the book. Everything else is sort of like artwork. But anyway, this is just some of the more interesting stuff here. Basically, this entire paragraph is the stuff we saw in the opening movie. Let's see if there's anything noteworthy here. So yeah, the Eldritch is so big it causes a great release of energy when it impacts onto the planet. Only the block with emergency navigational ability is able to soften the landing. It escaped complete destruction, but not known if there were any survivors. Central part of the ship's body, where Deus is stored, falls to the center of the ocean and sinks to the seafloor. Zohar's actual body falls at peak speeds of many kilometers per second immediately after the governing system Katamoni separates itself from Zohar's main body. It achieves a soft landing on the coast of the continent. So that's what we saw at the end of the opening movie, where we saw long-haired purple naked lady arising from the ruins. That was where the Katamoni is, and she was the first being to arise from the Katamoni. And this next thing at 000, this is System Hawa is activated. That's the first Miang. Activates and separates from the protocol Persona's base program, Elohim. The planet's first sentient beings are born. System Hawa forms the founders of human beings. Cain and the 12 people of the Gezo are formed from Animus, the parts of Katamoni. Elohim and Miang are split from the manager system, Hawa. The plan to reconstruct the enormous Deus system, in reality Zohar, is begun. The Eldritch's only survivor it has fought is the boy Abel. At the time he was 7 years old. He meets the newly separated Elohim. So we actually saw that in a flashback in the game. In one of the animated flashbacks we actually saw that scene. Cain and the others, making use of Katamoni's functions, begin to produce the prototype of different species, or different humans basically. Those life forms that are called humans rapidly increase at an exponential rate for a short period of time. However, the pace of this slows down shortly thereafter. And 10 years later, Cain begins to be worshipped as the advent of God among the people. Abel rebels against this worship. Thinking of Abel becomes a hindrance to Cain, and the next year Cain plans to eradicate the foreigner Abel. Elohim dies in Abel's place, and Miang observes this in silence. Okay, whatever. So here, just showing the Eldritch here. Eldritch is very, very big. It is 100 kilometers long. That's pretty long for a spaceship. I don't remember what the size of the Super Star Destroyer in Star Wars is. You know what, I have to look that up, but hold on. Let me look that up real quick here. Let me put the Super Star Destroyer. Okay, so yeah, this is way longer than the Super Star Destroyer. Oh wait, no, that's a standard Star Destroyer. What's a Super Star Destroyer? A regular Star Destroyer is 1.6 kilometers long. But this is probably still bigger than that. Okay, Super Star Destroyer from Star Wars is 19,000 meters, so that's 19 kilometers long. Eldridge is 100 kilometers long, so this is like 4 times longer, 4 or 5 times longer than the Super Star Destroyer in Star Wars, just for scale. So yeah, pretty big. Okay, what else do we have here? Okay, the main star Deus was heading for. Let's see what this is. During the opening movie, Deus takes over Razio, engages the space displacement mode, planning to take the Eldridge to the main star. The main star is not this Eris Prime star in New Jerusalem, but Lost Jerusalem. Okay. So in other words, it is heading for Earth. In regards to the measure taken by Deus to plot a course for Earth, this is never explained fully in the story. However, the people of this time certainly revere it as the holy star Lost Jerusalem. The year TC16, from the time that humanity set out for the stars, marked the time when Earth became the forbidden place, and it is said that about this time it became impossible to enter its zone. Why Earth becomes inaccessible, no one knows. At least it is thought that no sudden change took place in the region. In the case of Earth, it is wondered what kind of secret could be hidden there. Okay, so Deus was trying to go to Lost Jerusalem for some reason. For some reason, it was just decided to go there. And maybe assuming that Faye was not able to stop Deus in the game, maybe that's where Deus was going to try to go. Again, like they mentioned here, it's not really explained why Deus wants to go to Lost Jerusalem. It doesn't make any sense to me. Unless for some reason, you know, the Zohar and the wave existence are influencing it somehow to kind of go back to where it was found. That the Zohar was found on Earth in the distant past. Let me see what this other piece says here. The universe 10,000 years ago. 5,000 years after humanity leaves the mother planet Earth, complex array of small nations band together, forming the Galactic Federation. How together by a central governing body, the Directorate. Outer frontier nations begin small skirmishes, rivalries, space pirates, and the like become the accepted norm, finally causing an outbreak of interstellar war. Also around this time, the previously unknown whereabouts of the MAM, again, that is the Zohar, changes when it is discovered on the ship of an ancient religious sect. Basically, that would have been Ormus in the Xenosaga universe. And what is the meaning of this? That will need to be determined by succeeding generations, but after a period of almost 5,000 years, the analysis of the Zohar has begun once more, and in the process of analyzing Zohar, there is the Zohar phase shift theory and the catamony. After that, Deus is born, however, at that time, the scientists do not have full control of it. Okay. So this next part is just talking about how Deus is going to resurrect itself, basically. The self-revival program of Deus here. And basically how that's tied into the will of the wave existence. So, okay. So, basically take a step back here. Back to the Eldridge. The stuff that happens on the Eldridge here. The thing they don't really show you in the opening movie, but it's kind of revealed later on. And it's getting hot in my room. I gotta turn the air on a bit. So there might be a little bit of background noise. The thing they don't show you in that opening movie is what Abel is doing. during the events there. We got a little flashback of that during the time when Faye is dealing with Id, trying to unify his different selves together. We saw a little bit of that. So basically the story of Abel. Abel was one of these survivors from Mictum. He was a 7-year-old. He got lost on the Eldritch at some point. And apparently he was searching for his mom. And somehow he just happened to get into the chamber where the Zohar was. So what happened is apparently he touched the Zohar. And in that moment the Wave of Existence sort of recognized him. It understood that he was looking for his mother. So at that point the Wave of Existence sort of interpreted the mother's will and used the Catamony to create the first Ellie. And that's the Ellie we see inside the Catamony, inside Zohar, in that flashback sequence. So that was the first Ellie. Now apparently when that happened, that triggered some sort of self-defense reaction from Deus. Maybe like Deus sensed somebody was trying to hijack the Zohar from it or something. And it just kind of went berserk and started taking over the Eldritch at that point. So at that point, that's when Deus starts taking over the ship and starts wrecking everything. The ship self-destructs, it breaks apart, pretty much everybody dies except for Abel. Somehow Abel survives. It's supposed that Abel survives because at that point he inherited the power of the Wave Existence at that point, and that power protected him from being killed in the self-destruction of the Eldritch. Because the Wave of Existence at that point also chose him to free it from the Zohar. So that's when all that stuff happened. So after everything crashed, the Catamony was ejected from the Zohar. It landed in a different area. But by that time, Deus had kind of taken control of the Zohar and the Catamony again already. And it turned that first Ellie into the system Hala. So that's the purple-haired lady we see at the beginning of the game. It changed the first Ellie into that first Miang we saw. And that first Miang created Cain and the Gazel Ministry. And then it comes a little hazy in my head, in my understanding here, but at some point she split. Well, actually, no, she didn't split. I think that version of Miang went back into the Catamony. And then 2 more versions of her were created, basically to divide her up. So this is where we get like the anti-type, and I forget what the actual name that Miang was supposed to have at this point. It's like the concurrent or something like that. So that's when we have the split between Miang and Ellie happen. So that's when we get the first Ellie, and technically the Ellie we see in episode 2 is, I guess technically it's the second Ellie, technically, because it's the second version that was created. So, but that's when the split between them happened, and Ellie inherited the will of the Wave Existence. That's why she and Abel inherited the power of the Wave Existence. That's why both of them were able to reincarnate. Miang, as being part of Deus, he is basically part of the genetic programming of all the women on the planet. That's when basically she began too as well. So just for the record, Ellie came first, not Miang. Okay. And basically, as you understand, the humans were created to be the biological components of Deus. As you can see, your Catamony contained the original Elohim. Abel became the contact after he made contact with the Zohar. Now, the Anima Relics, they are parts of the Catamony. When fused with non-living matter, they play the central role as one of Deus's terminal interfaces. The anima and animus. Anima is a name given to those of the living parts forming the biological computer Katamoni is one of the indispensable factors in the resurrection of Deus. However, the anima were scattered to every corner of the earth at the time that the eldritches fall to the surface when it's self-destructed and all knowledge of them was lost. Garage action, locations, they cannot determine due to the action. So the animus were changed to humanity's founders. Any others, animus in the form of living humans are needed as working parts for the revival of Deus, having become the original form of animus. Cain and the others, as 13 members of the Gazelle, search for the next 10,000 years for the anima relics that make up the parts of Deus. Humans forming parts for Deus were developed and managed thereafter. Okay. So the anima relics were also parts of Deus. Talks a little bit about Elohim and Yang, Deus' desired resurrection. Deus was created as a mobile interstellar weapon. Deus is programmed with hostile destructive power. However, due to it having run out of control in a series of experiments, it began to destroy an allied fortress. This was Mictum. Upon receiving this information, the military overwhelmed Deus at the cost of a great many casualties, and placed it in suspended animation afterwards in order to aid in the investigation into the cause for its running out of control. Deus is transferred to another star system, but on the way it falls to the planet that appears in the story. At last 10,000 years have elapsed since its fall to the planet. Deus puts into motion its completed plan for resurrection. Even though the passage of those 10,000 years are almost an eternity for humans, it may be just an instant for the weapon Deus. However, doubt remains, and that is, after the resurrection, is it possible that the hostile power that we relied on will continue to exist? That is the question. In any case, its thoughts turn to the possibility that a hostile culture could in fact destroy it. The resurrection plan is simply the will of it as a weapon. If it is merely about destroying a hostile enemy, clearly the extraordinary cost of the plan is not in equal measure. From this it can be seen that Deus does not just want to destroy an enemy force, but it can be inferred that possibly another goal exists. The crux of the matter is that while Deus was in transit amid all the other star systems of the Interstellar Federation, it made plans to go to the mother planet. In terms of the complete revival of Deus, in this case, is this the entirety of all that it absolutely must do no matter what? So, it's basically just a little bit more information about Deus there. And to me, this is also kind of one of the mysteries of the game. Okay, like we understand that Deus was created as a weapon system. Like, a heck of a weapon system. But like what exactly was the threat that was so dire that somebody would have to make a weapon like this that has the power, of course, to destroy planets, but also to create new life over the course of tens of thousands of years. Like, we never really find out. And again, it's like we don't know why Deus wants to go back to the mother planet to Lost Jerusalem. We don't know why it wants to do that. It's just something in the plot. Which also begs one of the other questions about the entire storyline is, where the heck is the Galaxy Federation during this 10,000 years? What happened? Like, You would think like somebody in the Galaxy Federation would be kind of concerned that they suddenly lost the massive super weapon, like the Yabe system, as it's kind of called in game. Like, you think somebody would be like, whatever happened to that Deus thing? It just disappeared. You think we ought to go look for it? Apparently, it never occurred to anybody in the Galaxy Federation to go looking for it. Surely somebody in the 10,000 years since it disappeared would have gone looking for it. Unless for some reason the Galaxy Federation doesn't exist anymore. Which is my only guess here. So, like what happened to the Galaxy Federation during all of this? They went through so much trouble to try and capture this thing, and then they just never go looking for it again. It's like we had there's like no answer there. It's just a little bit of a plot hole in me. Unless for some reason the Galaxy Federation does not exist anymore. You'll think in 10,000 years, even if it ended up on a planet they weren't aware of, you would still think at some point in 10,000 years' time they would have at least come across this planet and be like, oh, what is going on here? Oh, look at this big tower thing. That looks a lot like the Eldritch, doesn't it? Maybe we ought to investigate this. But no, just never happens. So again, this is more stuff here about Miang creating humans and stuff. So this gets a little bit into the Zeboim stuff here. Okay, so this is where they mentioned the twin sisters of Miang right here in 6053. Miang 611 and Miang 612. Gives you a little bit more backstory on the Zeboim culture and Dr. Kim. So Dr. Kim took a college entrance exam. He enters the faculty of the Biological Sciences Department, where he began research on molecular machines. That same year, Elihan begins working at the Federal Hospital as a nurse here. I'm going to change up the music here. Give me a second here. I think we listened to Deus long enough here. Listen to something that's a little more appropriate for the scene. There we go. So Kim began research on molecular machines nanotechnology when he was in school. Kim continues his studies at the institution that year to take his graduate degree. Kim is in a period of transition from student to researcher, and he publishes his thesis seeking a way to reconstruct genes with molecular machines. Specifically, the plan involves the proposal nanomachine colonies he would use to create artificial life. However, this proposal is seen as blasphemy against God, and to avoid heresy, Kim is banished from the academic world. That year, having been driven out of the academic community, Kim abandons molecular machine research and re-enters the medical department. His aim is to once again tread the path towards becoming a doctor. And next year, Miang judges that this era's humans are defective for becoming parts for Deus. The result of a meeting between Miang and the Ministry decides the outcome. As one of the close associates of Zeboim's head of state, she begins to make preliminary arrangements for all-out nuclear war. Kim becomes a federal government doctor. He and Elahai meet at the hospital. And in 6081, the anti-government group Ravine is involved in the exploding of the central electrical facility. Due to this terrorist act, the capital city experiences a 50% blackout. The federal hospital also experiences an outage. And as a result of this, an unfortunate tragedy occurs when Kim loses the life of a young girl under his care. Okay, so we actually saw the fallout of this in the game. And in the flashback, and when Emeralda grows up, we saw the flashback of this. This was basically saw the results of Kim reacting to this terrorist attack. And also that Yer Miang took notice of Kim's thesis and concealed it, seeing as possibilities. Having simulated the measures for evolving humans, Yang contacts the department's doctor, Kim, and offers the use of a research facility as his sponsor. Accepting the offer, alongside his work as a federal doctor, he once again undertakes the research into molecular machines. That year, anti-government group Ravine also acquires Kim's thesis. Seeing the potential in the thesis for the creation of a dangerous weapon, they also contact Kim. So basically it was Miang who allowed Kim to create Emeralda. She basically saw the usefulness of it and gave Kim a facility to advance his study on the nanomachines. And the terrorist group Ravine also learned of this as well. Let's see what else is here that's interesting here. Some of this covers the same thing again. Okay, so we're on the right side about Zeboim's destruction and aftermath. Just kind of reading through this. At some point, Kim realized Miang's true nature. He chose different methods than Ravine, and he determines to begin his own independent war. As a result, his research facility is invaded by the military and Ellie is shot. Afterwards, Kim disappears, having sealed himself up with Emeralda, and so that same year, suddenly, all-scale nuclear war breaks out over the entire surface of the planet. Other than a small part of humanity that seeks shelter and escapes, all are destroyed. In addition to this, after the nuclear holocaust, large-scale plate movements occur everywhere on Earth. Because of this, the Zeboim civilization sinks to the ocean floor, and for approximately 4,000 years disappears from human knowledge. So Kim kind of creates Emeralda as an act of rebellion, I guess, against what is happening around him. The military finds out, they attack, and this is when Nurse Ellie gets shot and killed. And the nuclear war happens not long after that. They also state that the plate tectonics, the plates move around on the planet afterwards, and that's why Zeboim is like underwater. I don't know exactly how that would have happened in such a rapid fashion. Drinking so much water here. But so I guess the land did not look the same during the Zeboim era. It must not have. So again, this is talking about Emeralda here. I want to talk a little bit about the mass driver. It was basically made to launch missiles. And let's see. Okay, this is getting a little closer to the present of the game. This is when Cain creates Solaris. Oh, so this little blue box up here, this is an unrecorded script scene between Elohim and Krelian. "You've come to kill me?" He spoke, standing before the man as though not afraid of her own death, a pleading expression in the face that showed him as separate from all others alone in the world. Colors monochrome glow, and against that, he is stained in red. Those he has slaughtered, their blood stains his hands even now, and the man behind it, and bathed in red. Instead of answering the question, stands in silence, and all the while his hands on the sword are shaking. "I see, thank you." When did his will become a thing that could change? And all for a girl's gentle smile, and only for an instant she appears in color. Blah 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 blah. This is the meaning of Elohim and Krelian. Okay, I don't really understand that scene. It almost sounds more like it's an encounter between Elohim and Ramses almost, because Krelian, I don't think, uses a sword at any point in the story. So I'm not really sure what this is. I'm not really sure what that is describing there. It's very vague. So anyway, this is all the episode 4 stuff, basically. Okay, here's what I talk about Nimrod. Basically the creation of Nisan, the nation of Nimrod, and Sophia. Basically just kind of going over how Nisan was formed. Approximately 600 years ago, during a time of conflict between a number of small countries, the country of Nimrod was founded. At first it was recognized as a small country in comparison to others, but it slowly expanded its influence. At the time of ascension of the 5th king of Nimrod, Kuso Laodicea, it had grown to be the 2nd largest country next to Shiva. However, at this time, governments were still in a state of turmoil, and Emperor Kuso, desiring unshakable authority, focused on the Nisan sect, which at the time had prospered. The intimidation by surrounding countries was also part of the Emperor's plan, even though he acknowledged the Nisan Church officially. And their first recognition as a church, the Nisan sect accepted Emperor Kuso's assistance, and from there expanded swiftly. However, Emperor Kuso's goal was the Nisan sect's political uses, and knowing this, the Order members rebelled against him. In the end, Penuel's covenant came under attack. So I guess the Penuel covenant were original leaders of Nisan, and Sophia was the 2nd daughter of the Ashura monastery's bishop. She became the adopted daughter of Penuel Covenant's mothers. She was born with a congenital illness. Before long, Ellie's condition grew worse. In order to try a cure, she was transferred back home to the Ashura monastery at the eastern edge of Ignos. It was there that Ellie met Lacan, and before a few months had passed, she returned to the Penuel Covenant, and so 5 years later, Emperor Kuso enacted a plan to assassinate Sophia in the Penuel Covenant. The incident of the attack on the Penuel Covenant, the one chosen to attack Penuel and carry out the criminal act, Krelian, was unable to assassinate Sophia, and for the next 7 years or so his whereabouts were unknown. So basically, Nimrod and Nisan were not on the best of terms, and as Sophia kind of rose in prominence in Nisan, they sent Krelian to assassinate her, and he didn't do that. He basically... It was at that point that basically Krelian started to fall in love with Sophia. That's what happened. And then the Solaris War starts, and we know about... We pretty much understand all of these events from the flashbacks in the game. Show the Excalibur. And okay, so apparently this little triangular ship was the first version of the Merkaba. During the 500 years ago, it's the time to resurrect Deus. The Gate Ministry constructed Merkaba as Deus's mothership. Miang was against this feeling time was too early, constructed about midway through the Great War, and dealt a fairly heavy attack on Shiva and Nisan. So apparently this was the original version of the Merkaba, and we actually saw this in some of the blueprints in the Raziel computer scene we saw in the game. And of course we know how everything ended there. The Diabolus core. Okay, this is something else I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit here, because there's not really a lot of clear information on this. So, this happened when Lacan became Graph. Let me see if it kind of gets into this here. Okay, for Miang, the resurrection of Deus is all there is, not what is in store for the coming battle after the resurrection. In other words, it is the destruction of the hostile power in space that is the true goal of all this. Again, we don't know what the hostile power is. The Gazel Ministry understands the true goal, and while wishing for Deus' God and full embodiment, their thoughts run more deeply than Miang's. And so Miang, wishing for the complete resurrection of Deus, revives the Diabolus core. That era's Miang has a strong interest in those possessing ether abilities, such as Lakun and Sophia, Roni, and the others. And so the fact that the first stage mobile terminals, Diabolos, don't have ether ability becomes the biggest factor. If mobile interfaces such as Diabolos had ether ability, and from there could achieve a perfect revival. This was Miang's thought. Once more desiring to reform humans, and using the Diabolos to carry out the reset. As a result, only those humans with high ether ability would survive, and those humans becoming parts of Deus would finally evolve to the last stage. And there is another reason for having revived Diabolos, that is to stimulate the coming battle using the Diabolos. In this case, the Diabolos, a distant 10,000 years before, they had activated at Deus' first stage mobile terminals. These weapons were also being tested to see if they might be used in the coming battle after the resurrection, and so around this time, desiring embodiment and their merging with Deus, the Gazel minister set about activating the Gaeta key. Diabolus' attack was not only on the surface, but extended to Solaris as well. The inherent meaning of the activation of the key is what put a stop to it. So the Gaeta key, from the very beginning, humans were changing to be born as part of Deus. Gene manipulation was the M plan. People with altered genes, called the Sulfide feed, or Sufal, as they call it in game. They become parts of the Merkaba and terminal battle weapon. Gaeta key was meant to activate those people that had been created as building parts for Deus and cause them to revert to their original form. Parts it was decided to use it on the day of Deus' resurrection. Okay. Let me just kind of speed through here. Okay, this is getting close to the present here. What I wanted to mention here was the Diabolos thing. So, okay, so as mentioned, the Diabolos were mobile terminal interface weapons that got activated when Lacan made contact with the Zohar and became Graph. The story behind this is not really too clear to me, because I don't think the story around this is really made too clear in game. But I think like Graph's will influence the Zohar and trigger the activation of all these mobile terminal interface weapons called the Diabolos. And the Diabolos basically went out and attacked everything. This was also part of Miang's plan too, as was mentioned here. Once she saw that humans had to evolve the ability to use ether, that was a useful trait that she wanted to make sure was passed on to as many people as possible. So she kind of helped Graph initiate the Diabolos attack, and they attacked everybody, everything. This is when Nimrod got obliterated. They attacked Nissan, they attacked the other countries, Shevat. They also attacked Solaris. They just went after everyone. And it's not really clear to me exactly how or why they stopped. We do know that Reni and Roni Fatima survived, as they founded the country of Ava, the kingdom of Ava, not long after that. But the whole Diablos thing was triggered by Graf and Miang. It's not really made, and again, it's not really made clear how that was stopped. This is just talking about Nissan here. Basically, the division of the nations and how Solaris manipulates and controls the other countries. We kind of have an idea of that in the game already. That was done mostly for the ethos. Building Valana Solaris is Etronaut. Okay, so this is something else like I also want to bring up here. It's not really clear to me exactly how big Etronac is. Like, it's an entire city. It's supposed to be the core city of Solaris as a country. Of course, it hangs upside down and the gravity is reversed on it and everything. I kind of mentioned that in game. But it's always been kind of unclear to me exactly how big Etronac is. Like, how... I think the only point of reference we ever get for Etronac is when it starts crashing into the ground and you can see some mountains next to it. Just to get an idea of how big it actually is. This thing is really, really big, apparently. It's gotta be massive. Massively huge. This thing is basically a giant space station. That's kind of in the upper parts of the atmosphere. So. But it kind of leads me to another thought here, just kind of continuing on with this, is like... So Etronac is where... I would assume where most of the power of Solaris is concentrated. So after it gets destroyed, what exactly is left of Solaris exactly after that point? Because Krelian and Miang are still operating, and Ramses, the elements are still operating. Emperor Cain somehow got out of Etronac before it went down. So at that point, it's kind of like, what exactly was left of Solaris' military power at that point? So I can only assume that Solaris probably had military installations in Elru and Terra, which are those two other regions of the map that are kind of hidden until you get into Disc 2. And also, apparently, during all of this time, they were building the big version of Merkava underground. During this entire time as well. So again, sometimes I have to wonder, like, okay, where are they getting the resources to build something that big? I can understand that Krelian's probably using nanomachines to kind of help build some of this stuff, but you gotta understand, it's gonna take a lot of resources to build something that big. Because the Merkava is like gigantic. It's gotta be bigger than Etronac is. Because the Yggdrasil 4 is already big enough to be the center of the city. Then that thing can sit on top of the Excalibur ship, which is also huge as well. And the Merkava is just way bigger than that as well. It's just, man, things just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and as the game progresses. This is just more about the Solaris Shevat War. We don't need to go into too much detail about this here. A little picture of the Alpha Weltau, or True Weltau. The name changes throughout the game, I noticed. It goes from True Weltau to Alpha Weltau. Apparently the Reni and Fami Fatina had the original Omnigear via Anvari. During that time. Okay, so actually talk about the collapse here. Due to a secret exchange, Shinigami ministry and the elders of Shevat, Miang was handed over to Shevat. However, Miang could not have been handed over unless she willed it. Oh. Okay, so she was captured. She was captured purposely. Oh, my voice cracked. Oh, voice crack. Serious voice crack there. So she was captured so she could meet with Laken. And desiring information on the Zohar, Miang met with Laken. And at the place called Bethlehem. Oh, I think I ruined my voice here. Made contact with the Zohar, however this contact was incomplete. So Laken form was changed to Graph, and afterwards he caused what became known as the Day of Collapse. Regardless of the fact that Graph ruins the surface, Solaris also contends with Deus' first type mobile weapon interface. God damn, my voice is all screwed up now. Wow. Sorry about that. I drank my water the wrong way and now my voice is all screwed up. Diabolus collapse, humanity combines their full power to resist them, as well put a stop to Graph's rampage. However, the remaining powers had incurred much damage from warfare. Solaris as well as the surface nations, to the point that they can no longer continue it, so this way the conclusion of the Solaris War comes to an end without any tangible sign. So basically when Graph and the Diabolus appear, basically that kind of forced everybody to kind of band together and fight the Diabolus. And when that ended, everybody was just too tired to fight anymore, and it's like, okay, whatever. Because really, according to the game, the Graph and the Diabolus killed like, what was it, like 99% of the surface, like 99% of the people on the planet. Yeah, I think at that point, everybody was like, okay, I think we have enough fighting. This kind of gets into the division of political power within Solaris. Okay, I'm probably not going to spend too much more time on Perfect Works here. It's the stuff in like the first several pages is the most interesting stuff here. And you kind of go over the ethos here. We already know about the ethos here. Nissan. Try and move ahead here and try and find some more interesting stuff here. I'm going to change up the music here. We listen to this enough here. Let's see, what do we want? Yeah, let's go with Shevat. Okay, now we're getting into Ava, Fatima, Jasper. We already know about this. Stuff about Shevat. Here's that Shevat army gear. We only saw it like one time. When I tried to attack the oxen and got killed. So just getting to Kislev. So we were talking about the Ava Kislev War. Again, I'm not going to be going into too much more of this stuff here. Let me skip ahead here. Okay, yeah, here's the map of the world. The actual full world. It shows you like the 4 regions. So yeah, this area in the northwest of the area Tirani, where the Mahonan, the Katamoni, Zohar, Golgotha, the Bethlehem area, Anima Relic 2 are all located in this area. Akvi, as they say in here, but it's Aquavi in the game. Your Babel Tower, the Ethos Church, the Lighthouse, the Orphanage, the Fames, and later on the Shevat crash site, the Snowfield hideout is. And Solaris is kind of like right above this little island, right here in the middle of the map. And on the other side of the map, we have Ignos, where the game starts. Lehan, Black Moon Forest, Dazzle, Blavedek, Kislev, Nortun, the Goliath Factory, Nissan, Fort Jasper, Duman Isle, which is hidden in the first part of the game. There's also a couple other locations on this map. We have Pris and Nome. They're not in game, but they are referenced. I don't know if they're referenced in the game, but one of these locations is where Sigurd is from. And in the bottom right area of the map, we have Elru. Some people, sorry. Well, Yeah, this is what happens when I try to talk for so long. My voice just gets ruined. What I was going to say is that some people think Elru is shaped like Japan. I can kind of see that a little bit. What else do we have here? Oh, the height chart. Okay, this gives you an idea of how far up everything is in the game. So this basically gives you elevation. Thankfully it's in meters. So Shevat usually hangs around between 12 and 15 kilometers in the atmosphere. Solaris is like way up at almost 40 kilometers. That's like way up in the upper atmosphere. And at the very bottom, the Zeboim ruins are about 274 meters under the water. Let's see. On the other side of the map here, they show you the Babel Tower is about 5,000 meters tall, so about 5 kilometers. Let's show you where Deus before revival about 3 kilometers tall, and after revival is 46 kilometers tall. So technically in game, Deus's final form, you know, the nanomachine form on the surface, is supposed to be taller than Solaris? Or wait, I might be thinking of that wrong here. After revival. Okay, maybe that's when... Okay, that might be when Deus is trying to escape into the upper atmosphere and Faye chases after it in the Xenogears. Maybe that's what they mean here. Because I don't think the nanomachine fortress of Deus was that big in comparison to everything else. So it probably meant that Faye's encounter with Deus in the upper atmosphere was around 46 kilometers in the atmosphere. It was just some more history on the countries. just gonna scroll through this real quick here. If you're watching and you want to actually read through this stuff, you can just Google the translated version of the Perfect Works PDF and look it up. And then you can just kind of read it at your leisure. I'm not going to read through everything on this. In fact, I'm probably going to switch back to insufficient data for an image. Okay. Alpha's first stuff. Let's move on to... what we have here. PDF viewers getting kind of laggy here, so I may have to stop anyway here. Yeah, I'll probably just stop here. The rest of it will just be like line art stuff you look through. And go ahead and stop this, because it's kind of lagging things out now. Let's go back to the game here. I'd probably talk about some of the other stuff I wanted to talk about anyway. Let's see. I already talked about the Eldridge. I already talked about Alien Man's, the episodes. Okay, actually, no, let's talk about the origins of the game. Because it's actually a very fascinating story here. Let's find some different, let's get like a different scene here. The Saito room is the best room. Let's just go there. Tokoso! Oh, we get graphsing right off the start here. I don't know, just pick something. Yeah, okay, just a bar work for a second here. Okay, so Xenogears started off as a couple different things here. So, from what I understand, it kind of began roughly around after the time Chrono Trigger was made on the Super Nintendo. Takahashi and Soraya Saga kind of wanted to... They kind of met early on at Squaresoft. They were originally like character sprite artist, and Takahashi kind of wanted to do his own story, and Saga kind of had her own ideas as well. So, but I came up with this idea for what a proposal for Final Fantasy VII would be on the next generation console. Hironobu Sakaguchi at the time kind of reviewed it, and it was like, well, this is kind of too dark, so he didn't want to go with it. So it was that. The other thing is that the Xenogears storyline was also kind of proposed as a possible idea for a Chrono Trigger sequel. So, but of course it didn't become that. It became its own thing, Xenogears. And the thing is, you know, as a fan of Chrono Trigger as well, I can see a lot of similarities between Xenogears and Chrono Trigger. I think Xenogears is a game that kind of... It has the spirit and DNA of Chrono Trigger in it. Probably maybe a little bit more so than even Chrono Cross does. Even though Chrono Cross is the actual sequel game, sort of. It's kind of debatable. It's debatable there if you actually played Chrono Cross, it's debatable. But I think Xenogears does have a lot in common with Chrono Trigger. Deus and Lavos are very similar, sort of an environmental type of antagonist. They're both like alien beings from elsewhere that basically affect the evolution of life on the planet. You find out in Chrono Trigger, Lavos does this thing too, where it starts to affect life and development on the planet through affecting Zeal specifically, the kingdom of Zeal specifically in the game. which also plays kind of a parallel to Solaris in Xenogears. And also, even though Xenogears doesn't really have time travel between different eras and everything like that, there are distinct eras in Xenogears history, even though you don't actually time travel between them. You had the stuff that happened during 500 years ago in the Solaris Shevat War. You go even further back to the Zeboim era. You go even further back to the time when the Eldritch crashed. And supposedly there would have been like a future area too, beyond where episode 5 was, into episode 6, so. Again, also a lot of people who worked, some of the people who worked on Chrono Trigger worked on Xenogears. We have mainly Masato Kato, who was a story writer on Chrono Trigger. And supposedly that's how Luca became a cameo in this game. Kind of a little bit of a callback to the ties to Chrono Trigger in this game. So I think that's very interesting. And a lot of the themes, some of these themes and ideas were also kind of passed on into Final Fantasy VII, and the game that we know as Final Fantasy VII. A lot of the psychological and stuff, and it kind of got passed on into Final Fantasy VII. Some of that may have started here. I don't know about the One-Winged Angel stuff, but you have the 2 One-Winged Angels in Nissan. I think it's just coincidental. I don't really think that's actually tied into the stuff from Final Fantasy VII, though. That's just my opinion. Because the meaning of the One-Winged Angels in Xenogears is very different from whatever it is in Final Fantasy VII. The One-Winged Angels in Xenogears are supposed to represent the two separate parts of man and woman kind of coming together to be one whole, so that they have 2 wings to hold each other up. That's basically the idea. It's a very meaningful and poetic idea right there. Alright, so what else do I know about Deus? We already kind of talked about Deus pretty much. Again, we don't really know what the full purpose of Deus was originally. It was a weapon, but we don't know why it wanted to go to Lost Jerusalem. Let's see, I already talked about that stuff. Loose threads. So this gets into the Disc 2 stuff here. Pick another piece of music here. Okay, that works. Sorry. So the story about Disc 2. There's been a lot of different ideas and rumors and stories about Disc 2 over the years. It really wasn't until a few years ago that we actually got the actual answer from Takahashi himself about it. Because there was an interview with Takahashi where somebody asked him about what happened with the development of Disc 2 Xenogears, and why it turned out the way it did. So, the actual story, from what I understand, is that at that time, back in the 90s, Squaresoft had a rather strict development time on games of about 2 years. And the development of Xenogears was taking so long that there wasn't enough time to finish the game properly the way Takahashi wanted it to be. So he was running up he was running up on a hard deadline from Square to get the game done. So of course the top executives at Squaresoft knew this. The music just kind of stopped on me there. I want more music here. Yeah, that works. Go with that. So, the executives at Squaresoft, they wanted Xenogears to be done at the end of Disc 1. That's what they wanted to do. So if Squaresoft had its way back then, Xenogears would have ended with the destruction of Etronac, pretty much, and that would have been it. But of course Takahashi did not want the story to end there, because that only would have been like half the story, and that would have been a really bad place to end the game, right there. So Takahashi was able to come up with a compromise to the situation by almost completely changing the way the story content on Disc 2 was to be presented. This is how we ended up having the story told to us instead of playing it out on Disc 2. And some other stuff got cut out of the story too as a result of that. So Disc 2 was basically the great compromise, is what it was. It wasn't really because of budget reasons. It wasn't because they wanted to take developers away to work on Final Fantasy VIII or Chrono Cross. Basically, the whole thing is Xenogears development was taking too long, and Square needed to have the game done. I guess they needed to have it done by Christmas season in '98 or something like that. So that's pretty much what happened. As a result, some stuff got cut from Disc 2. There were supposed to be more Omnigears we were supposed to have in Disc 2. There were supposed to be Omnigear versions of Sidespin and the Crescents. You can actually see the artwork for that in the Perfect Works. And I guess there was supposed to be more storyline for Maria and Emeralda in Disc 2 that we didn't get. We got a little bit of it with Emeralda becoming adult Emeralda. Although I'd probably say like the biggest thing that we kind of lost in Disc 2 was a resolution to Rico's storyline. If you remember, Rico is supposed to be the demi-human son of Kaiser Sigmund, the leader of Kislev. And apparently that storyline never got resolved. In fact, we don't know what happened to Kaiser Sigmund in Disc 2. I would assume that he's dead. The only moment that makes any reference to this unresolved storyline is Hammer, when we last see him. Hammer says when we defeat him that he does tell Rico to go back to Kislev, and because Rico is now the heir to Kislev, that he needs to go back and reclaim his title there. Something to that effect. But that would kind of indicate to me that maybe Kaiser Sigmund is dead at that point in the game, and that Hammer already understands that Rico should be the heir to Kislev at that point. But unfortunately, we don't get to see that storyline continue in Disc 2 at all. It just kind of stops there. And like I mentioned with Maria, I assumed there was supposed to be more storyline with Maria. Who knows what that was supposed to be? Pretty much Maria has no plot relevance in Disc 2 at all. She says a few lines, that's kind of it. The only, like we talked to her in the Yggdrasil at the end, the only thing she's still talking about her dad at the very end of the game. Even though that seems like that happened ages ago now. One other thing that probably was not really made clear at the end is what happened to Titan's wife, Yui. Like we find Midori at the Snowfield hideout, the Shevat ruins, and when we talked to her, Faye made reference for her to listen to her mom. So I would assume Yui is still around somewhere, but she's not actually in the Snowfield hideout anywhere. So I would assume she's still alive somewhere. It's just that I guess maybe the game developers forgot to put her in somewhere. Because it'd be kind of hard to imagine that she's dead if Faye is still making a reference to her. So I don't know. Alright, let's do some different music here. See what else we can find here. I guess we can go with this one. Okay, so this is probably one of the more dividing topics here. I have my own opinion on it. How is Xenogears related to Xenosaga? Probably as I mentioned, when we're going through the Perfect Workbooks and the early history of the Xenogears timeline, there's a lot of stuff that happens that is very familiar to the Xenosaga storyline. However, it has to be stated for the record, Xenosaga is not a prequel to Xenogears. Even Takahashi has said that. That said, Xenosaga does borrow a lot of the same story ideas and elements about the origins of the Xenogears timeline. Like I mentioned, the discovery of the Zohar on Earth, testing of the Zohar leading to planets disappearing. We have a certain emigrant fleet who takes ownership of the Zohar, a certain super weapon that is created utilizing the Zohar. We have the planet Mictum, which also is an important planet in Xenosaga. So the way I see it, when Takahashi and Soraya Saga and his team left Squaresoft, they were not able to really continue working on Xenogears, because Squaresoft had kind of decided they didn't want to do anything more with it. But Takahashi still wanted to... He still wanted to make some version of this story. So Xenogears is like one version of it, and Xenosaga is like another version of it. They're not directly connected, but they are kind of... It's the same story, it's just told in a different way. That's the way I kind of see it. So they went to form Monolith Soft, and they did Xenosaga with Namco, and there are 3 games. That was originally supposed to be 6 games as well. But of course it didn't turn out that way. It only made 3 games. But the way I see it, the Xenosaga trilogy is like a version of the events that are described in Episode 1 of Xenogears. It's a version of it. It's not the exact same events, but it is a version of that story. And if you have played Xenosaga, you know that the way it ends, it really cannot really go into Xenogears with the way it ends. But, you know, I like to think that if Xenosaga ended differently, then yeah, it probably could go into Xenogears. If it ended differently. But it doesn't end that in the way that would lead into Xenogears, so again, it's like, no, Xenosaga is not a prequel to Xenogears. Besides the obvious reason that, you know, Xenogears is still a owned IP of Squaresoft, of Square Enix now, I mean. So Monolith Soft can't really directly use the Xenogears characters or settings. But apparently they were free to make all sorts of wink wink references and nods to Xenogears in the game, so when I get around to playing Xenosaga on stream, you'll probably see a lot of that. But yeah, I think that's about most of the big stuff that I wanted to talk about here. So, what we got left here So now we're just going to look at some more stuff in the debug room here. So we're in disc 1 here. So I mentioned in one of the, well, probably in the last stream and before that, I'm using the undub patch for this, which fixes a few bugs in the game, which I had to use for this too. So, but that also means a lot of the in-game animated movies have been changed to use the Japanese voices instead of the English dub. I know more people are more familiar with the English dub, obviously from the English North American audience, they're probably more familiar with that. So we can have a little movie viewer here. This lets you see all the different movies in the game. Let me look at the guide here so we can look at the list here. Let me pull it up here. So if you ever want to see some of these movies in their original Japanese audio version, you can look at that. Give me a second here to find the list here, because everything's in numbers. You don't want to go with numbers. You want to know what it is. That's music list. Here we go. So page 1, page 2. So page 1 and page 2 are disc 1 material, so we can look at some of this stuff. And apparently selection 1 doesn't do anything, so we'll start 2 here. Oh, it has the background music playing. Yeah, if you want to watch the cutscene with background music playing, we can do that too. Ugh. So yeah, this is when grabbing. That's when Graf and Khan are kind of confronting each other. But yeah, turn the music off. Hold on. I think we have to do 64 to turn it off. Oh, nope, that's not it. Hold on. There's a silent track on the music. Let me find it here. 9-4. Okay. There we go. Alright, now we can listen to the movies without background music. Movies, there we go.
このような形で貴様と再会するとはな。これも定めか。皮肉なものだ。だが、こやつだけは渡すわけにはいかん。たとえこの身砕けようともな。
I am such a fan of the older hand-drawn anime style, especially from the 90s. It's just my personal opinion. It looks so much better than the stuff I see today. The computer-assisted anime I see today. I think the hand-drawn stuff has a lot more soul to it than the computer-assisted stuff I see today. It's just my opinion here. It's probably why I still like 80s and 90s anime over the 2000s and 2010 anime. I must pilot the gear. I can also just stop this music. Stop it anytime I want. to see if there's anything interesting here. I could only do like the first 2 pages here. Oh, okay, here's the flashback. This is when the first Abel meets the first or the, I guess technically the second Ellie. So these first humans are supposed to be the... No, I think these are supposed to be the original Gazel, I think. And this is when the first Ellie shows up. Of course, the thing is that she has that Nissan pendant thing even back then. So I'm kind of wondering where that came from. Hey! Dada!
そうだ。俺はお前をよく知っている。お前は殺した。あの人を。あの人。いや、殺したのは。違う。僕じゃない。僕は。
Let's see if there's anything interesting here I might want to see again. Number 2 does nothing. Oh, this reminds me of something else I forgot to mention about the Eldridge opening movie scene. So towards the end, there's a scene where the captain is like looking at a picture of his family, his wife and daughter, and he kind of sets it aside. Apparently there's a lot of people that think that the daughter looks like Ellie, and I can kind of understand that. From what I've heard from a few sources is that that was actually kind of a mistake. that was not really the intention there. It was just kind of coincidental that the daughter ended up looking kind of like Ellie. So there's not supposed to be any connection between the captain's daughter and Ellie. It was just that was just kind of a coincidence, I think. Oh, we can watch it destroying Solaris again. Apparently that's track number 3 here. Or not. Oh wait, no. I gotta go back to page 2, that's right. Gotta get back on page 2. Yeah. I want to see the thing where, oh, okay, here we go. I want to see the part where Vetronak is crashing on the planet. But that kind of gives you an idea of the size of Vetronak. Hopefully we'll... Okay, here we go. It's actually next to a mountain here, how big it is. So apparently it fell on a small island that was kind of underneath it, is what happened. Let's see if there's anything else here. Alright, I don't think there's anything else to look at here. Let's see if there's any interesting locations we can get to. Bye-bye! Yeah, Mr. Krillian is kind of hanging out over here. Krill, if you want to really break yourself, he has stuff. What did he give me? Hob jerky. Not the most useful thing, but he does have other stuff he can give you. Battle. What did he give me? I don't know what he gave me. I don't know what he gave me. He can give you like 99 of the stat up things. And if like you really want to break yourself, if you really want to break the game, yeah, 99 EP draws. By the way, the characters only have like a maximum of 99 EP. So, yeah. Alright, we need to get back to the main room. I think we can... Do I talk to you to get back? App edit. No, we don't want that. App edit. No. I think there's a way to get back to the main room. Map 0. Yeah, there we go. Map no door. There we go. Okay. Alright, I'm gonna take a quick break here. We'll be back in just a second here. And we'll look at some fun stuff here. Okay, I'm back here. Let me pull up the Doku Demodor stuff here again. See if there's any interesting stuff we can look at. Or go back to in the game. Find the list again. Because I think even with the door, we can probably go back and fight do some fights that we did before. Like, let me try... Actually, a fun thing here, I think we can actually go into Joe's shop in the Zeboim area. Let's try that, see if that works. 393. Because even though this is a disc 2 thing, I think we can still access it on this one. Yep. They can access Joe's shop on this one. UFO photo. Okay. You give Weltar the Omega 100. Yeah, so technically we're not supposed to be here on this one. This is a little fun thing we can do. Now the only problem is, to get back to the debug room, we have to find a door somewhere. And if we get into a fight, we're probably not going to last too long. What's this? Just these guys. We might be able to take them out. They actually do some damage. We just want to stay away from the griffins, because they will probably one-shot the gears at this point in the game. I don't remember if there's a door in here. Because you have to find an actual door in order to get back to the debug room. Oh, discussion on the expedited slave generators and special effects. That is talking about the slave generators. Okay. Okay, wall of text here. Apparently there was like a few things I did miss in here when I didn't really look at in here when I was in here before. The story of Big Joe is supposed to be in here somewhere. I think. Let's see if I can find it. Because there actually is a backstory to boot to Big Joe. Okay, here we go. The WWE Heavyweight Champion, 5-time hit movie star Big Joe. His real name is Joey Balboa. Added NBA Player of the Match to his list of accomplishments for the year, which includes the Wimbledon Grand Slam, a baseball Triple Crown, and the Pulitzer Prize. At the award ceremony, when he went to shake hands, he slipped, hit his head, and went home brain damaged, burnt out and thinking he's Elvis. So yeah, that was that's your brief backstory on Big Joe. So apparently he existed during the Zeboim time. He was like a superstar of sorts. He suffered a concussion, thought he was Elvis. That's why he dresses so weird. So apparently at some point he went into suspended animation that was revived in the more modern era. And he's just been kind of hanging around doing whatever. So yeah, I don't think there's a way I can get back to the debug room in here. Because you have to have an actual door. You can't go through like an open doorway. So yeah. But anyway, that's kind of neat. You can actually look in this place, in disc 1 if you wanted to. Just go back here. That's why I have the save state. So what else can we look at here? That would be interesting. I wonder if we can fight Shakan again. The 4495. See what happens here. Oh yeah, apparently we can fight him again if we want. I think. Yeah, here it comes. So yeah, you can use the Dokudama door to go back and fight some old fights. I'm not gonna go through this because we know what happens. Graph is gonna show up and everything and power him up and blah blah blah. Oh, I just hit the wrong button. Dagnabbit. That's why I have a backup save state. I'll use this one. I had Billy with me. Had a backup. Just in case I pressed the wrong button, which I did. I saved during the Shakan thing. I didn't mean to do that. Alright, what else can we look at here? Most of the locations are on disc 1, as you might guess. Because there aren't a whole lot of locations on disc 2, because most of it is just talky-talk stuff. Let's see if there's anything interesting here. If nothing else, I can probably just move on to disc 2. Which I think is probably what I'm going to do. Alright, why don't we move on to disc 2 here. There's a few neat things we can do on disc 2 here. Whoops, come on. Change the disc, please. Come on. Probably better for me to reset. Make sure I got. Okay. Should be on disk 2 now. Make it loaded up properly instead of in the middle of something. Don't want to cause any screw up. Alright, so I created a different save in disk 2 right here. And this is actually after, well, I took the team out of the final dungeon just before Deus. There's actually kind of a reason you want to do that, just out of curiosity. If you leave Deus at that last point in the game, that will unlock the El Regulus Omnigear in the battle arena. And as far as I know, that's the only way to unlock it. So you have to get to like the very end of the final dungeon to unlock that. Then you can leave and go to the battling arena and look at it there if you want. But other than that, we are back here in Shevat. So let's find the doorway here. I may have to go into the Yggdrasil here. Oh, and by the way, this dude over here, which I mentioned before, he did finally find the jukebox, which is over here. You have to pay money to use it. Actually, I think we can do it here. I just need to find a doorway. I think there's a couple of doors. The game, yeah, over here. Here's a door. Say the magic words. Ye shall be as gods, and enter. There we go. Alright. Let's make a quick save here. Alright. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun here. Let me go back to the Saito room for a second here. So we can pump everybody up here. Talk to Mr. Krillian here. He has the good stuff here. I need to again look at the guide because I need to understand what it is that he's giving me. I want the good stuff here. Give me a second here, I gotta find it. It's a very long guide. Okay, so page 2 has all the good stuff on it. So Rhea should give all the really good gear equipment. And apparently everything on page 2 here is just upgrade items. Let's go ahead and get all of those. Alright, so if we did that correctly, we should have a ton of good stuff now. I have 12 Deathblower ones now. I have Angel Armor. 9 of those. 13 pilot shields. Depth load 2s, 15 E for armor 3s. Got 10 Z chargers now. FX cleaners, frame HP 90s, and GNRS 50s. I got 9 of those now. We don't need no health recovery. And for items, we should have got 99 of the strength rods. Okay. We're gonna make like the ultimate destroyer. Ultimate destroyer of Fae here. This is all just for fun. Just for fun. So I give him, let's just give him the rest of them. Yep. I'm just gonna max Fae out. And the max HP is also 99, by the way. Let's go and use these up here. Oh, we want Emeraldo to be like supercharged here. We don't care about sight. That's good. And we can refill our HP. All I want. Okay, let's go do some fun things here. Alright, so I did kind of experiment around with this earlier. We can like have a little bit of fun with a few scenarios we can have fun with here. Like I mentioned, there's not really a whole lot we can go back to on disc 2, but we can have fun with a few interesting scenarios here. Let me look it up here so I can find it here. Yes, here we go. This will be fun. Okay, do I have armor equipped on these guys first before I do this? Let me make sure we... Yeah, we do. Oh, we're good. We're good. So, 627. Here we go. Remember this? Let's see it one more time. Actually, one thing I should have done before I did this is like make sure Faye was level 80, because this last death blow was like really amazing. I may try and do that after this. Here we go once more. Get him, Titan. Because normally I don't think you can actually get out of your gears in this fight, so this is actually kind of interesting. This is very, very interesting. So I'm pretty sure Emerald can do some damage here. Yeah, she can do some damage here. And Faye can do some damage with his top level death blows. Man, like, I really wish he had his level 81. His level 80 death blow does like a lot of damage. Like, I don't even know if Titan can do any damage here. A little bit, not a whole lot, but... The really funny thing about this is that I don't think the G Elements has any programmed attacks to attack characters, so I don't know if it can actually hit them. Yeah, see, it skipped a turn because it doesn't have any attack. So if you can just wail on this thing with your characters and it can't really counterattack. I could go ahead and switch elements, but they can't really attack you. So, this is just a really funny little thing you can do. I'm sure if I just spend enough time here, it could probably take him out, but we'll just be kind of chipping away at them. Alright, let's go back. Let's do something else here. That I think will be very, very amazing here if I can get this to work. Should have another... Or I can use the Holy Pendant, I don't know. Maybe not. I need another evasion ring. I'll take the one off sight in here. Okay, so this next one. The 655. 655. I want you to guess what that would be. 655. Brings you back to here. Now let's just let this play out. But yeah, this thing is a Razio computer. By the way, I think the diagram in the background is the Malak Angels. They're the terminal interface weapons. So, yeah, see, here's the schematic for the original version of the Merkaba. So apparently the gigantic version of the Merkaba was the one that Krelian had designed and created. Okay, here he is. He appeared. Except this time we have the Xenogears with us, so... Alright, so let's see. The Xenogears versus the full-powered Alpha Whale Tail. Who can win here? Also, let's test out Emeralda's souped-up ether abilities here. A lot of damage. So this is going to depend entirely on luck here. Because if Alpha Whale Tail gets lucky and actually gets its 3-hit combo, it'll pretty much kill any gear. But you might get lucky and they might never hit us, so we'll see what happens here. Even get some hyper mode going here. I'll just have her use her magic as much as she can. She might be dead here. Oh, almost. There we go. Hypermodo. Oh, she's gone. Okay. So now it's just Xenogears versus Alpha Whale Tail. Yeah, we're just gonna be doing like max damage here. As long as we can avoid getting hit. Huh. Oh! Bad luck there. You know, I actually thought that was the fist of the Xenogears. It's actually not. It's the foot. It's the glowing foot. Oh. Dang it. Okay, we're probably dead here. Yep. Oh well. It was over. It was worth a try. It was worth a try. I could probably keep doing that over and over again. I might eventually get lucky and be able to defeat Alpha Welltail with just the Xenogears. But let's see if there's anything else interesting we can look at here, and then I'll probably pretty much wrap things up here. Oh, there is like a... Let me find it here. Okay, 675 and 676. Should probably look at those here. They are unused cutscene in the game. It's not much, but yeah, we have this scene here. Portrait. So apparently, I guess what this was supposed to be part of a cutscene involving the story behind how the portrait of Sophia was commissioned. And basically they're asking Lakon to paint a portrait of Sophia. And if you'll notice that Sophia, and they're actually in the Shevat library here in this scene. But apparently this scene does not appear in the game. And that's pretty much all there is to it. That's it. And then we end up over here, which is just another part of the debug room. Dan over here will just talk a bunch of nonsense and whatever. Let's go back here. Anyway, 676 is just a very slightly different version of that. A portrait. It's the same thing, it's just that the text is a little different. But yeah, that's it. Okay. Alright, so this stream's been going on for almost 3 hours here, so it's probably at this point I probably should end this here. I think I know the perfect thing to end this on. Go back to Untitled Room here. There is one other hidden extra in this game. Yeah. Go back to the list here I'm looking for. Okay. So yeah, my final thoughts on Xenogears. I want to give that right here before I do this bit at the end here. So my final thought on Xenogears, after playing it all this time here. I still very much love this game. This is still one of the most amazing JRPG experiences I've ever had. And especially at the time when this game came out, when I first played it, because before then I was mainly I mainly only played Final Fantasy games as RPGs, and Chrono Trigger. So something like Xenogears was a bit mind-blowing at the time when it came out. Admittedly, probably many of the ideas aren't that amazing anymore, so it probably doesn't hold up to modern audiences too well, I would imagine, but it's kind of understandable. This game has its crust. It definitely has its crust now, so it is a very crusty game now. I'm not going to be one of those fans that's going to say that Xenogears is the best game of all time. No, I'm not going to say that, because that's a little ridiculous, because there are some things that Xenogears doesn't do very well, like platforming. I mean, is really anybody going to say it's the best game of all time when it has some of the worst platforming parts in a game? I don't think so. And I do think that the game is a little too text heavy in some things. And not even in Disc 2, there's stuff in Disc 1 that is probably a little too text heavy. That could be condensed or changed up to be a little smoother and easier to understand. But you know, despite all of that, and well, the music also gets kind of repetitive too in the game, by the way. Again, that's because Mitsuda just didn't really have the time or energy to make more tracks for the game. So there's that too. But you know, notwithstanding, this game is still very special. I think it's a very special and unique game. And I very much enjoyed replaying this game. It's just amazing. There was so much I did not remember about this game, and just playing through it again was... It wasn't quite like playing it again for the first time, but it was probably as close as I could probably get to it. So I still very much like this game. So that said, we're going to end on a very special thing. So there is a special movie on this game, in this, that you don't see normally. You can only find it in the Debug Room. I think it's... let me make sure. It's page 3, right? Yeah, it's page 3. Okay. We're gonna end out on this here. And enjoy.
Those
So yeah, that was actually a special music video, but actually kind of hidden in the game. There is like some more video after that, but it's just gonna play some of the other cutscenes in the game without the music or anything, so it's not really worth looking at. But yeah, that music track you can find on the soundtrack CD, and for a long time people didn't think that was on the game anywhere, but it is actually in the game. It's just kind of hidden away in the debug room here. So, but anyway, that is going to be it for Xenogears. This was an experience, and anyway, that's going to be it for the stream here. So that's it for Xenogears. I keep repeating that. Anyway, I'm going to end here. So it's been fun, and I'll continue the adventures of Xeno at some point. We'll see. Bye bye, and good night.